Welcome to our Candidates Debate, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Grafton, of the Grafton-Shrewsbury area. This event is being broadcast live and recorded by Grafton Cable TV. It will be broadcast on Channel 19 and Verizon 33 as a recording. Tonight live, it's on 192 and 34. And you can also watch it from the website later on, and we'll have it on our Facebook page also. We do not allow others to record this event to prevent possible editing of the proceedings. Also, please put your cell phone on silent mode or turn them off. Questions for the candidates for school committee and select board will be collected by league members. Thank you to all the volunteers who helped make this event possible. Our moderator tonight is Beth McCallum from Shrewsbury. Beth will review the guidelines for the debate.
Thank you, Ellen. I'd like to begin by outlining the League of Women Voters nonpartisanship policy. The League of Women Voters, or LWV, is a nonpartisan volunteer organization that works to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. It does support or oppose legislation after study and consensus agreement above its members. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those candidates running unopposed for library trustee positions to make a brief statement of up to 4 minutes long. Could Carrie Hogan and Roger Trahan join me, please?
And we're also going to bring up the planning board person,
Oh.
all three of them.
Okay. Oh, okay, great. I'd also like to invite James Davidson, candidate for planning board, to join the others at the table.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, first of all, to the Grafton and Shrewsbury League of Women Voters for doing this. This is just a wonderful event, and so appreciative that I'm able to participate. My name is Carrie Hogan. I live at 17 Craftsman Court in South Grafton, and I am running for one of the 2 open positions on the Board of Library Trustees. This is actually not my first time running for this position. It's been a little while, so I'm a little rusty, but I ran back in 2012 and I was fortunate enough to obtain the position. I served a term and then was reelected in 2015 and had to step down due to some health issues at the time. After I stepped down from the board, I became really active with the Friends of the Grafton Public Library, so really have continued serving the library really since that time, and really enjoyed, that position as well. I'd like to thank Karen Sepitelli and Marty Eisner, who served on the board, and they actually are the ones that stepped down and opened up the 2 positions that Roger and I are running for. And honestly, I actually was not expecting to run for this position. I was signing nomination papers for Don Anderson, and I remember doing this way back when, and was very happy to sign her papers, and then found out that Karen and Marty weren't running again. So if they hadn't stepped down, I wouldn't be running for the position. But if anybody who in town especially knows me knows I am very passionate about the library. I see Laura nodding over there. I love the library. And when I saw that the 2 positions opened up, I was very concerned because it's really important that we have good people on the board of the library trustees. So I did not, wanted to make sure that we filled it with somebody who was good, on the board. So I pulled papers, and I was very happy the following day that Roger pulled papers. I had no idea you're interested, so I was thrilled. So it's so nice that both of us are running, uncontested for the position. The library is really the heart of the community. Even if you aren't borrowing books from the library, it's a place we have conference rooms, we have so many resources there, and it's really a place for everybody to come together. The position of library trustee in my opinion, is really, it's a steward of the library, not just the physical building, but also of the relationship with the community. Like, we're responsible for making sure that the library not only looks beautiful, which of course it does, but also that it serves the needs of the community. That's really critically important. So, like, reflecting back, when I first ran in 2012, the biggest concerns at that time when I ran were really having to do with the building itself, and then also the accessibility issues. So we're so fortunate we were able to build the beautiful library, but now we need to make sure that we maintain it and that it does address the needs of the community. So right now, the biggest challenge that's facing the library, in my opinion, is with staffing. We've been having some challenges. There's been some folks that have been out on medical leave, and we need to really shore up and make sure that we have the staffing that we need to serve the community. I'm probably went a little bit long, I don't know. So, but again, I just wanted to to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity, and I would really be thrilled to serve the town again in this capacity. So please consider voting for me on May 16th, and thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms.
Kevin.
Hogan. Mr. Trahan is the second of two candidates running unopposed for a 3-year term as a library trustee.
All right, thank you. And I forgot my progressive lenses, so. And I am going to read straight from the paper. I'm not going to try to wing it.
Yeah, I just gotta.
Tend to go down a rabbit hole when I do that. Good evening. I hope that everyone enjoyed National Library Week, which ended yesterday. I'm Roger Trahan, and I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday, May 16, 2023, for one of the 2 uncontested seats for 3-year term on Board of Library Trustees. First, I'd like to thank the League for hosting this event and to Grafton Community Television, GCTV, for videotaping to help Grafton voters weigh their decision. I'd also like to thank Karen Sepatelli and Martin Eisner for their service as library trustees. Carrie Hogan and I are now in the enviable position of running unopposed. Taunt. My wife Lori and I built here in 2000. She grew up in Grafton, me in Worcester. We have an awesome son, Blake, who's 12, and the best dog ever in our poodle, Bailey. The role of a library trustee primarily entails being one of 7 elected stewards of the library, its property and facilities, setting and amending numerous library policies, and helping prepare and administer a nearly $1 million annual budget, along with our library director, Beth Schreiber. I have a passion for libraries, lifelong learning, accessibility, and the freedom to read. We're in the middle of a culture war regarding book banning and censorship of reading materials. Grafton Board of Library Trustees has adopted the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights, as well as its Freedom to Read statement. These awesome documents may be found on our library's website, graftonlibrary.org, under the materials selection policy, and they're a must-read. This trustee position requires preparation, regular attendance, meaningful contribution, and the ability to collaborate, seek consensus, and assume leadership roles. All of these attributes describe my record of public service here in Grafton. This began with a 3-year term on Finance Committee, during which time I was its representative to Bylaw Review Committee, serving as chair. I was also on Finance Committee's the rep to Grafton Public Schools Strategic Planning Committee and the Business Manager Search Committee for Blackstone Valley Tech. You may also recall my 3 years as elected town moderator. I stepped down after 1 term when I became a dad. And during my tenure as moderator, I presided over 7 town meetings and appointed many members to Finance Committee and to the High School Building Committee. Currently, I'm chair of Grafton's Accessibility Advisory Commission, formerly known as Disability Commission. After noticing that the commission had been inactive for 8 years, I initiated its revival to the Select Board during the summer of 2019, and I've been chair since that time, having created all of the commission's agendas and meeting packets while listing my contact information on each agenda. I'm big into transparency, so if anyone needs to reach me, I'm at 508-335-0507 and rtrahan Jr. at hotmail.com. That's RTRAHANJR at hotmail.com. I'm totally aging myself with that Hotmail account. And anyone can message me on Facebook. What's that, right? Instagram or LinkedIn. I also drafted Accessibility Advisory Commission's last 4 annual reports for Grafton's annual town report. I cannot.
Oh, 15.
15.
Oh, okay. All right. And I will be remaining on the commission. In closing, I again thank the League and GCTV. I'm excited to start serving on the Board of Library Trustees alongside Carrie Hogan, Aaron Vandersteen, Doug Bowman, Dana Wilson, Stephanie Texiera, and John Paul Bobrisky. This can only happen with your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. James Davidson, who is running for 1 3-year term unopposed on the planning board, to present his remarks.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here tonight. So my official name is James. For those, I also go by Jim as well. Thanks for having me. A little bit of background about myself. I moved to Grafton in 2020 when the world went into lockdown, and I ended up starting a moving company here in Grafton, and hired a local crew from the area. And I started noticing a trend as I was going on the moves. I noticed there was a lot of folks leaving Massachusetts more than coming in. So I was kind of piqued my interest, started asking a few different questions, and really started reaching out to people and trying to find out those reasons so I could keep people living here in Massachusetts. And so that really is what first got piqued my interest in getting involved with local politics. And I started to realize that a lot of the issues that people were bringing up were coming from the top down, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to get people involved at the grassroots level, and also get involved from the bottom up. So that's kind of like one of the visions I have is really listening to residents and making sure that their voices are heard at the grassroots level, and that involves anything going on in town. So everything, just talking to people from housing projects to commercial development to charging stations. So a lot of different topics going around in town. And look forward to connecting with the community here in Grafton. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. I'd also like to add that John Paul Kelly, an incumbent, is running unopposed for 1 5-year term on the Housing Authority. At this time, I'd like to invite up candidates for 1 3-year term on the school committee. If Craig A. Julis and Rebecca Soko could come to the table, I'd be grateful.
Should we sit right next to each other? Yeah. It's fine.
I hope I know who I am.
What's that? Some general information before we begin, and this will apply to both the school committee and select board candidates. League members are going to be taking written questions for the candidates. All questions may not be asked. Sometimes if we get a lot of similar questions, those will be consolidated or combined. We're estimating about 30 to 40 minutes for school committee candidates to speak. It'll depend on the number of questions and how long the answers are. And we're estimating about 45 to 50 minutes for the select board candidates. You're each going to have 3 minutes for your opening statement, 1.5 minutes to answer each written question, and we'll alternate having each of you go first. If you would like to make a rebuttal, please let me know. You will be allowed 30 seconds for your rebuttal, and closing statements will be up to 1 minute. So for your opening statement, I'm going to ask Rebecca to begin. followed by Craig, and then Craig, you'll take the first question.
Sure.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to this. My name is Rebecca Soko. I've lived in Grafton for a little over 7 years. I moved here from San Diego, and at that time I had one child, and now I have three. I have one in the Grafton public school system and two heading in shortly, and I'm very excited about it. We have been very happy with Grafton schools so far overall. And my background, a little bit about me is I'm actually from Vermont. I moved to California to become a surfer because I didn't get into vet school right out of college. And so that's what I did with myself. And I met my husband and I got my teaching credential in California. And I taught secondary school science and community college when I was there. And then I had sort of a what do I want to do with my life again moment. And I decided I wanted to go to vet school. And fortunately for me, Grafton has a great vet school and it's close to my family. And so we moved back here. And so now I'm a veterinarian, but I have a lot of passion about education. I've always loved working with kids. And I would love to bring some of the perspective that I have to the schools here and sort of continue some of the great work we're already doing and maybe bring some new ideas.
Thank you. Craig, your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much for the invitation again this year. My name is Craig Gillis. I live at 44 Browns Road with my wife, Amy. We have two children, a daughter, Emma, who's a junior, and our son, Ian, is in 8th grade. I'm running for school committee again this year to bring my 22 years of experience in the classroom and in the main office to our committee to ensure that our students get the education that they deserve. If we truly want to develop lifelong learners and citizens who are going to contribute to society, per the district's mission statement, then we must ensure that all students have the necessary skills to meet and be successful in an ever-changing world. In those 2 decades of work in different capacities, I worked to revise curriculum, develop and implement new programs, and analyze student learning through varied assessment models and methods, and worked with various stakeholders to ensure that our students' needs were being met with where the students were. Part of this work also included ensuring that policy expectations were being met with consistency and fairness. My reasons for running for school committee are personal. I have 2 children in the district, but I'm also running for all of the students in our district. I will never advocate or suggest that we lower standards. In education, it's our belief that students can meet higher standards when provided with proper levels of support. I'm an independent candidate. I'm open to conversation, debate, and discussion, as long as that involves giving our educators what they deserve, and in turn giving our students what they deserve. I'm not interested in politics, which seems kind of ironic. I'm only interested in making sure that our students get what they need. I'm here to ensure that our students are met where they are as learners, with appropriate levels of support and challenge, and are taught to internalize those skills in order to achieve higher expectations and to meet high standards. I'm here to ensure that all of our students are supported. Current SEL practices are not isolated practices, but that are embedded into our curriculum and have measured outcomes. Lastly, as a parent, the past 2 years, we've seen our learning gaps continue to persist. As students progress through our program of studies, and as our students meet higher levels, as well as our students who struggle, those learning gaps become amplified and become a source of frustration both for the students who are trying to achieve and us as a parent at home. In doing this work, we can ensure that our students are ready to meet the challenges of a world that continues to evolve with the necessary skills to be independent thinkers, learners, and to contribute as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I would like to ask the audience to please hold your applause. At the end, maybe we can do one round for everyone participating, but in the event of time and protocol, let's please hold them till the end. I'd like to begin with a question, and Craig, you'll get the first question.
Sure.
And again, as a reminder, it's going to be 1.5 minutes to answer, then you'll have the next opportunity. You're both free to offer a rebuttal if you choose. Please just indicate to me that you'd like to do so. So first question submitted for the school committee, and I'm happy to repeat these if you need, let me know. What are your thoughts on schools assisting students with gender transition without their parents knowing?
So this, as a high school principal, I encountered this actually in 2015, where it came down from the state that the student could transition without the parents' knowledge. Overall, if we truly have a community where we believe that all stakeholders have a say in this and that they're going to be part of the conversation, I think many of the problems that you're seeing today are created because people think that secrets are being kept. Things aren't being told. Given that, the current state with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education from the state, schools do not have to share that information. My own personal experience, having these students as middle schoolers and then having them as high schoolers, the conversation for us really came down to the parent not knowing, and the first time the parent was going to find out was when their student's name was announced at graduation. That then led to many conversations both with the student, with our guidance counselors, with our school staff, to ensure that the student felt supported in terms of having that very difficult conversation with their parent, a single parent. I think in terms of students progressing, as a parent, you should want to know what's happening with your student. And as a parent, we don't always know. Thank you. But that's a very important thing, that parents should be in tune. So the parent, the school, and the student can all work together to ensure that student gets what they need.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Thank you. I think it's definitely a very complicated question, and there's not really a simple answer. Thinking about it from my end as a parent, I can't imagine being so distanced from my student or my child that I wouldn't want to be involved in something like that. But at the same time, I'm really passionate about mental health in supporting that in our schools. And I think that public school is often the only safe space that a lot of students have. So if they don't have a safe space at home, I think it's important that we're able to offer that to them at school. And I like what Craig said about trying to give tools to make that communication with the parents, because I think you are setting yourself up for battles and failure if there is secrecy. But at the same time, I think that the students' mental health needs to be the most important and on the forefront.
All set?
All set.
Rebuttal for either? Okay. We're going to go on to question 2. Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to respond first, please. The school budget is almost 60% of Grafton's budget. What steps can school committee take to try to hold down spending or offset some of the spending?
It's an impossible question. There's never enough money. But I'll be very honest. I know that budget is a huge part of what we're going to be doing as school committee. And I've watched several of the meetings and I find the budget the most daunting because there are so many wrong answers and it feels like it's really hard to make those choices. I want there to be more money is what I want, but that's not the truth. And so I think the most important part, at least in my opinion, is to make sure that we're listening to what the community really wants us to be focusing that money on before we make choices. And that's, as an elected official, I think it's critical that we're listening to the community and really focusing on their priorities when it comes to how we prioritize what we're spending our money on.
Okay. Craig?
So I think in terms of looking at a school budget, I think the first part of that work, certainly listening to what your schools, your principals, your administrators, your different department heads are asking for in terms of what they need from year to year. I think part of that is also asking for my own personal experience. We've always been asked for prioritized lists in terms of what our most important need is, 2, 3, 4, 5, in terms of things that we need to have, and then kind of, I guess, the what would you like to have in terms of as we go through the budget process. Unfortunately, I've been in the process or in the part of the process where it was a level funded budget for multiple years. And much of that driving force behind that was all the collectively bargained agreements with the different unions. I think in terms of looking at our school budget, in terms of it being a driving force, you can look at different things. We've looked at the length of the subscriptions that we have for textbooks, for curriculum resources in terms of extending it out in terms of a 1 or 2 year, 3-year plan up to a 6 or 7 year plan to alleviate some of those costs. I think those are the different things you look for. Unfortunately, in the last 2 school districts that I worked in, we did have to look at things as user fees, reducing department heads or stipends. One district actually, and I don't believe you can do this anymore, actually traded stipends for credits so you could advance in the salary scale. So I think those are all the different things that you look for within a school budget. And as Rebecca said, the other part of that too is you have to
That's
understand the community that you work in.
Thank you. Opportunity for rebuttal. Question 3. We're going to begin with Craig. Youth mental health is one of the biggest issues in education today, leading districts to implement social emotional SEL, or social emotional learning, I believe is the correct terminology, in the curriculum. How do you think Grafton is doing with this implementation, and how would you improve or change it? And I'm happy to repeat.
Yeah. So I think schools are a microcosm of greater society. I think, the biggest stigma around the biggest issue I think with mental health is the stigma that's attached to it. People choose not to engage in it because of the perception of what that entails and how it will be received. Within schools, to be honest, for my middle schooler, they don't see, and I was very excited to see, I believe it's the Rebus wheel on the different things from the middle school. That's in the 2nd edition for that book. Ask a middle schooler how that connects to their day-to-day interactions within the middle school. They don't see the connection. My experience directly working at a middle school in North Attleboro is we did the backward design curriculum revisions as we were embedding all those different pieces of common practice across the grade levels. The different practices within that same book by Mark Rebus, I believe it's Mark, those practices having to do around group work, working with other people who may have different opinions with you, that was embedded into the curriculum as the curriculum was being rewritten. So as the teachers are looking at common practices and assessments for a unit on Shakespeare, they were also embedding those different practices and those different lessons with outcomes, measured outcomes, into that curriculum work. I think that's how you do it. The student at that point may not see it, but that can certainly be a conversation that teachers can have as they're having their common planning time. They can talk about how students are responding to those different exercises.
Thank you. Would you like the question repeated?
Sure.
Okay. Youth mental health is one of the biggest issues in education today, leading districts to implement social emotional learning, SEL, in the curriculum. How do you think Grafton is doing with this implementation, and how would you improve or change it?
Thank you. Mental health is one of my the big things that I'm concerned about, and one of the reasons I'm running. I think that I haven't seen anything that my daughter's brought home specifically around mental health programming. She's in 4th grade. I don't know if we have a lot going on in 4th grade. She also doesn't tell me very much. But I strongly believe that expanding mental health programming is huge. I really want kids to be individually evaluated, might not be the right word, but I want there to be a systematic way that we're talking to kids, we're opening them up for conversations and destigmatizing therapy in general. I think that if we have a program where all students have someone that they're talking to regularly in the schools, we're going to not miss a lot of the kids that are falling through the cracks. I know that one of my big fears when we went into lockdown was the kids that I know don't have safe homes, and they were there and no one had any contact with them. Having people at the school that are more like a touch point, a safe space for those kids, for every kid, I think is critical and amazing. And it's something I think would really be wonderful. And I know that's huge and overarching. I think we need to do smaller things as well, anti-bullying programming and more embedded in the curriculum things. But I really think mental health is something that we should be expanding on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Opportunity for rebuttal?
No.
Next question. is going to be for Rebecca first. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the school district? And what do you think, as a school committee member, you should do to help solve it?
I think it's budget. So helping to solve it, I know that there's only so much that we can do around budget, around how much money is coming in. But I know that there were some conversations with Representative Meridian about trying to get more money because we got less money than we expected this year. And I think that obviously we need to be creative within the budget that we have, but I think also looking for other sources for income. And I mean, it's a really tough one because I also want to expand so many things, and expansion takes more money. And so I think looking for more creative solutions within our community would be wonderful, and also evaluating and sort of fighting for more money to begin with is something I really think that needs to happen.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the school district? And what do you think, as a school committee member, you should do to help solve it?
So, looking at schools, I think you have a lot of good things that are happening. I think to a degree, in many cases, even the students within the building aren't aware that they're there. Take a, as you want to talk about social emotional learning, you want to talk about mental health, but you have things that are happening in terms of the College Career Readiness Center, I believe is the full title at the high school. How many students know that it exists? How many students take advantage of it? When you look at curriculum, we're still 2 years since the pandemic, and kids are still dealing with these gaps in their instruction. You have all these ideas around social emotional learning, and you have opportunities to really implement them within the curriculum. So it's an ongoing, constant thing, not something that just is there every day, I think at the middle school day 2 or Friday at the elementary level. I think as you look at the biggest challenges for schools, it focuses around curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Because ultimately the goal of any school is to produce students that improve each year, that progress through the program of studies, and when they graduate, they're prepared to really succeed at whatever comes to them, whether that's college, a trade, the military, just life in general. They're prepared to really take all those different things head on. And I think that's the day-to-day work that schools need to focus on. The budget will always be there. Collective bargaining will always be there. But I think that's the day-to-day work to ensure that you have the staff and you have the resources to really help your students succeed.
Thank you. Next question is somewhat similar, but does have a different component. I'm going to ask you, Craig, to begin, and I'll read it and reread it if necessary. Behaviors and social emotional needs are at different levels than ever before. How do you plan to support educators and students through these difficult times?
Okay. So I think in my role, whether it's in the classroom or in the main office, we were always told that if it happens for one, it happens for the other. Meaning, if it's an expectation in terms of academics or behavior, it needs to be consistently enforced because that brings about a sense of justice and fairness. I think in terms of the increased behaviors that you're seeing kids that went from day-to-day school to remote school within the span of a week, and then no school, and then remote school, and then hybrid school. So then how did you get those kids back into school where they could have that consistency? And I think Rebecca said this in terms of school may be the only safe place for them. Safe in terms of not being at home, food safety. They had contact with a counselor, whether it was a guidance counselor or an adjustment counselor. I think a missed opportunity for our students here in Grafton, you want to talk about building relationship with a person in the building or having someone to talk to. So when you have those mental health issues that come up, how do they get to see their guidance counselor? Students at the middle school can see I believe there's 3 guidance counselors. They don't have that one contact person to deal with. And I think that's a key part to have. So have the person who has that baseline Same thing with teachers. I mean, part of the common planning time and part of the conversations that teachers should be having is reading their students, knowing their students. So as those things start to manifest at the smaller level, it can be addressed then before it becomes something that's much larger.
Thank you.
Will you read it again?
Of
please?
course.
Thank you.
Behaviors and social emotional needs are at a different level than ever before. How do you plan to support educators and students through these difficult times?
I'll be really honest. When I graduated from vet school, I considered going into teaching. There's a lot of wonderful animal science programs in Massachusetts. I love technical education, and the reason I ended up not doing it is because it's sort of the pressures on teachers at this time are astronomical. And so I think I was scared. Honestly, I was scared to go into teaching. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I'm just seeing sort of this mass exodus from teaching, not particularly in Grafton, but across the country. And I really think listening to teachers and what they need and the struggles they're having is critical. I have friends who are teachers, and the pressure on them is enormous, especially with the added component of mental health of their students. And they're worried about their students, they're dealing with these additional behaviors, and they're dealing with trying to get them caught up academically. And it's just, we're asking them to do so much more than they ever had to do before. And I don't know what the solution is. I'll be 100% honest, but I think that the people who have ideas on that are the teachers. And I really want to have those conversations and really support teachers where they are and where they want to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have actually answered all the questions that were submitted. I'm going to ask my colleagues if anything else has come in since the start of the.
I guess that's it.
Okay, so thank you both.
There's no potpourri around.
Answer trivia questions.
Since Craig had the opportunity to give the first opening statement, I'm going to ask you, Rebecca, to provide a 1-minute closing statement.
Absolutely. So I'm Rebecca Soko. I'm running for school committee. The things that I'm passionate about, you heard tonight, I'm passionate about mental health. I'm also passionate about really evaluating what we're looking at for success for our students. I would also love to expand preschool programming in our district, and I would really also love to look at dual immersion programming, which I know is sort of a pipe dream, but pipe dreams start somewhere. And so those are the things that I'm really interested in learning more about. And I'm also just really excited to be a part of the Grafton community and be more involved in this town that we've chosen to raise our family in. You can find me on Facebook at Elect Rebecca Soko, and that's pretty much the only place I am.
Thank you. Mark.
Craig.
Sorry.
I thought you said called me Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. Ahead of May 16th, I would encourage all of you to visit my Facebook page, Craig Julis for School Committee. I would also encourage you to reach out through that Facebook page with any questions that you may have about me as the candidate, and I'll be more than willing to answer your questions. More importantly, to have a conversation with you so you can get a sense to know who I am and where I stand. Whether you stand for me or you stand against me, I have an understanding of how politics works. I'd encourage all of you to reach out and have that conversation. Things can be done on Facebook, but it's much better to have that conversation in person. I know some of you might see a colorful chart on social media explaining why you shouldn't vote for me, perhaps hearing around town why you should vote for me, or perhaps even a phone call in the coming weeks about me as a candidate or even my family. In any of those cases, I would encourage you to reach out to me to have that conversation with me, and I can explain to you why I think I'm the best person to sit on the Grafton School Committee starting after the May 16th election. In the end, I'm running for this seat to ensure that our students get the education and support they deserve to be successful each year in the Grafton Public Schools and beyond. A vote for Craig is a vote to ensure that our students are prepared for whatever comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bring our little
They're gonna tackle you if you try and take it.
Set. At this time, I'd like to invite the candidates for select board to join us up front. Got questions for me? Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I'm remembering who was first.
So
Colleen?
So in the order for questions, Colleen is going to do the first question, Matthew is going to do the second,
Okay.
and Mark is going to do the third. Yep, I'm all set.
All right. Can I cross out the extra T?
Oh, good.
Right, you're the only one with a girl's name.
Okay.
This is like,
It's similar to some of the other ones.
okay. All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to introduce the candidates for select board. Folks are running for 2 3-year terms on the select board. Candidates are Mark C. Limo, Colleen Roy, who's an incumbent, and Matthew Offen, who is also an incumbent. As a reminder, you're each going to have an opportunity to make an opening statement of up to 3 minutes. Written questions, you'll have an opportunity for 1.5 minutes to answer. If anybody would like a rebuttal opportunity at the end, if you request it, that will you'll be allowed 30 seconds per rebuttal. Closing statement will be 1 minute long. Numbers were drawn prior to the start of the event. Colleen Roy is going to answer question number 1 first, and then we'll sort of alternate the order. Matthew will be second, Mark will be third. So that'll be for question 1. I am going to ask you to do your opening statements in alphabetical order. So, Mark, I'd like you to begin with
Sure.
up to 3 minutes, please.
So it's Alamo, Mark Alamo,
Alamo.
as I remember
Apologies.
the Alamo. Happens all the time.
Okay, thank you.
To the League of Women Voters, I've heard so much about this event. It's an honor to be here and to see everyone this evening. Colleen and Matt, looking forward to a great discussion. I'm kind of the new guy, and I have a little bit of absence of experience in this realm. But I'm really, really proud to be a part of this. The last couple of months, I've been speaking with as many as 400 people in this town. And it's been an absolutely amazing journey for me to get to know people and hear their candor, their passion, their feelings about everything. And it's just, it's one of those things where I'm so excited to be a part of it. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm glad to be here with you. Some people know me as Grace Alamo's father. Other people know me as Lynn Alamo's husband. And I say that because it actually happened here tonight. Some of the reasons you don't know me is because I'm a homebody. I spent a lot of time taking care of the house, doing stuff around home, hanging out with Lynn. Another reason you may not know about me is because I spent 30 years traveling around the country, back and forth many times doing business, in a career in sales that has kind of taken me from an individual contributor to a national leader of a sales organization. And in that context, it sort of drains the life out of you. People who've done it know. So when I get home on a Friday night, I'm exhausted and I just want to hang out and do nothing. And that's another reason why you kind of don't really know a lot about me. At the same time, it's that experience, I think, that has prepared me very well to serve in this room and on select board. Everything that I've done in my career, those learned and earned skills that I've accumulated over 30 years, again, traveling all over the place, working in 4 different industries, working with all kinds of people at all different levels of organization, solving all kinds of problems, surrounded by pressure, expectations, and accountability. All of that, I think, brings a certain sense of experience to this body that would work really, really well. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I used to sit in that audience and listen to people talk about how much help the town needs. The town needs people to help volunteer for committees and for boards and for everything. And because of my experience and as I've asked people about, well, what can I do to help? The journey, the path sort of led me to this point, because those skills, those experiences, I think really work really well in this environment. So I'd love to talk more about that, but I'll pass it to the next, whoever that is.
Matthew's
To
going
Matthew.
yes, give the next opening statement.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the organizers, our moderator, GCTV, the town of Grafton for these wonderful facilities, and also for the other candidates for participating. For those that don't know me, I'm Matthew Often. I'm a family man who lives in Grafton with my beautiful wife Laura, who's here tonight. My two wonderful kids, Cooper and Lily. I have served in the Army Reserves and the Massachusetts Army National Guard. And in my professional life, I'm a director in charge of 2 global technology teams. I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I promised in 2020 and how that's played out. Under my influence and leadership on the board, I've delivered on a lot of these priorities. First is public safety. We've had significant improvements in public safety, including hiring several full-time roles in both the fire department and also the police department. I interviewed and appointed our first full-time fire chief, Eric Matthew, which is a fantastic decision on the board's behalf, and also has played out really well. We've had significant improvements in the fire department, building on an already strong department. You won't find somebody who's more a strong supporter of education, Grafton Public Schools, including BVT. So we'll continue to make sure that the schools get the resources that they need to continue improving with my support. As far as financial management goes, a lot of the credit actually goes to our new financial director, Mary Loria, which I was a big supporter of. That hire, as well as updating our financial policies, were things that were called out in our audits and bond rating reviews. So those were things that we addressed to try to put Grafton in the best possible position to borrow money as inexpensively as possible for these large projects, things like the library and schools should they need to be built, and other things like that. I've spent time on the planning board, on the capital improvement planning committee. I've spent time on the finance committee, chairing 1 year. I've spent time on the accessibility advisory committee, and currently serve on the Affordable Housing Trust. So I have a broad swath of experience in a number of different areas, and have been volunteering happily for Grafton for quite some time. Yeah, I think I bring a lot of experience. The Select Board has had its challenges over the past 3 years, but I think what you've seen is a lot of grace and composure on my time in the Select Board. And thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you. Colleen.
My name is Colleen Roy. I am the current chair of the Grafton Select Board. I'm seeking re-election for another 3-year term. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and everybody who contributed to making tonight possible. I grew up in nearby Hopkinton, where my father served on countless boards and committees my whole life growing up. So serving my community is something that was instilled in me at a very young age. It was just something I knew I would do whenever I planted my roots somewhere. And in 2015, my husband and I bought a house in Grafton and planted our roots. Our family expanded in 2014 and then in 17, and once we kind of got out of that baby cave, then I said I got to start doing something for Grafton, and I got involved really quickly. I've served on numerous boards and committees myself already at this point, and I just think it's really important to be giving back, and not only giving back time, but it's just the fact that my children are watching me the same way I watched my father. Just the other day, we were driving down Pleasant Street, and my son saw some work going on, and he asked me, what is that? What's going on there? I said, oh, I don't know. It's a power company, buddy. That's not the town of Grafton. He goes, well, what committee would know? He's 9, and he's already thinking that way. And a lot of adults wouldn't even, put that together. And I'm just excited to be part of not only giving back to my community, but hopefully shaping the next leaders of this community as well.
Members or candidates for the select board did receive one question in advance of tonight's candidate night by email, and we're going to begin with that question. Based on the numbers that were drawn, Colleen, I'm going to ask you to provide the first response, please. I'll read the question for the audience. What qualifications and or experiences are important for a select board member? Why are you uniquely qualified?
Okay. I would say I'm uniquely qualified currently because I'm the current chair of the Grafton Select Board. So that is a strong qualification coming right out of the bat. Being flexible, I think, is a very, very good qualification too. And it's not something everybody has. Not everybody can prepare for a meeting and come in open-minded. They think they can. But then when you get up here and the lights are on and it starts, it becomes really difficult to do that. And I've displayed that over the last 3 years, that I can not only come prepared, I can be open-minded and change my mind mid-conversation as well as things unfold and, come out. So I think you need a thick skin too. That's something else a lot of people think they have until it's time. And it is difficult to be criticized constantly. It is a thankless job, but it's something that's really important, giving back to your community. I've been called a lot of things, but unprepared is not something anybody's able to ever call me.
Okay. Matthew.
Sure. Could you repeat the question?
Of course. What qualifications and or experiences are important for a select board member? Why are you uniquely qualified?
Sure. So as far as qualifications go, I think it helps a lot to have experience in municipal operations at some level. Whether you've worked for the town, obviously board and committee experience is extremely vital, so that you understand how the pieces go together, how the budget works, how the different departments relate to each other, where their roles and responsibilities lie. Those kind of things are really helpful. Going to town meeting is really important. And seeing kind of how legislation is passed via town meeting. I love Grafton's, Massachusetts' form of, it's such a direct, democratic form of government with, you show up and you have discussions at town meeting to pass the budget and legislation, bylaws, and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to do that. I think it's important to have a good temperament, to be positive. Select board can actually be pretty fun, believe it or not. We have a lot of interesting meetings. We're constantly dealing with different topics. I'm pretty fascinated by the breadth of information that we have to kind of grasp pretty quickly and be able to turn around into good decisions. So just some discernment is another thing that I think is really important. And finally, the ability to work as a team, see other people's perspective, respect diversity and of skill set and perspective on the board. And be able to work together as a team.
Thank you very much. Mark.
Number one, you have to like the town. You have to appreciate what this town is about, its history. Number two, you have to like and respect the people in the town. And you have to listen to them. You have to trust them. You have to engage them. Number three, and you probably won't be able to tell by hearing me say this now, but you have to listen more and talk less. I agree about the open mind. A friend of mine says to me all the time, my mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. Have to be really open to ideas and ideals of the individuals that live here and be fully willing to serve them. And the last piece for me is before you walk through that door, you have to check your ego, your politics, and your agenda at the door. They should stay in the parking lot. They shouldn't even leave the house. You should be willing to serve every single individual in this town with an open heart and an open mind, and in a way that has nothing to do with you. It's all about serving the individuals here. Life has a way of humbling people a little bit, right? I've had a few things in my life that helped me to realize that life is way bigger than me. It's not about me, it's about everybody else. And in that context, what makes me uniquely qualified? I bring those sensibilities to this desk. I bring those sensibilities to the people I've been talking to. It matters to me now what happens in my life every single day going forward. It matters to me what she sees me do every day, and serving the people of this town with an open mind and an open heart, with a broad perspective of experiences. That's what's important.
Thank you. Any requests for rebuttal on question 1? Okay. We're going to go to question 2, and Mark, I'm going to ask you to respond first to this question. What is your vision for Grafton, and what steps can you take on the select board to move us toward that vision?
My vision for this town is to be what it has been for so many years, this wonderful, sweet, suburban town in the middle of central Massachusetts, with all kinds of really great people committed to community, committed to being together, committed to connecting together, and allowing for progress in this town. A big part of that progress for me personally, because of my business experience, is economic progress. I talked to some people last weekend in South Grafton, and we talked a little bit about the possibilities of developing that part of the town with respect to businesses and other things. And in that context, it's a great idea. And I think that way about all of our town, developing not just responsibly and intelligently around housing, but also at the same time with our businesses and our businesses in town. What I would do is I would try to connect with everybody possible in this building and all over all of the committees, all of the boards, and just develop a strong relationship, immediately sign up for economic development and work with them and do the best that I can to bring my experience and my sensibilities to all of this in town, to developing our town economically and beyond. And additionally, one other piece of this is the discussion, the conversation. For me, the conversation should be, like a grown-up conversation. We should have good conversations together and respect one another and treat each other with civility and dignity.
Thank you. Colleen, and I'm happy to repeat the question if you need me to.
Sure.
What is your vision for Grafton, and what steps can you take on the select board to move us toward that vision?
So the number one job on the select board is policy. So those would be the steps that we could take on the select board. But my vision would be to get as many people engaged as possible. And it is difficult to get people engaged. We don't have a local news source that helps to get the message out as much as we used to. And it wasn't even that long ago where we had the Grafton Common, and we would have our meetings Tuesday night, and Wednesday morning there'd be 1 or 2 articles posted that really was getting the message out of what the select board was doing. And that really would get a lot of conversations going and a lot of different viewpoints going, and that's sorely missed right now. We do have the Grafton News, but a lot of the articles aren't very timely all the time, and there's just that big lack of information missing. I know during my time on the board, I tried to really help with that by putting on a local community access show with Amy Marr, This Week in Grafton Government. We did that for about a year, but it was just very unsustainable to try to just the two of us do that. We watch as many meetings as we can. We were trying to get as much information out there as we can to try to get as many people involved as you can. And at the end of the day, you still find people that say, I didn't know about this. And that breaks my heart, because I really want people to know as much as they possibly can about Grafton to help all be rowing in the same direction.
Matthew.
Thanks. It's a good question. In terms of the vision, my vision for Grafton, the most important thing to me is protecting that sense of community. Grafton is going to continue to change and grow as it has since I've been here for 22 years. But the thing that hasn't changed is how people treat each other. It's the conversation you have on the common with somebody that you don't know necessarily, but you know that it's a great place to live and this is a neighbor of yours. So people are, have that real sense of community. And as we continue to grow, I think the most important thing is for us to protect that. It's not about the number of people in town. It's about how they act towards each other. So I think that's something that needs to be protected. What can we do? I think that a select board member can really consider and value perspectives from all of their constituents in town. I pride myself on being somebody who listens deeply to everybody. I'm not always the smartest person in the room on every subject, and I need to be able to learn from other people. I need to be able to hear them, and I need to be able to address their concerns. I think it's really important for us to provide a safe and inclusive place for people to live and work. And I'm being given my 15 seconds. I think it's also important to bring valuable businesses into Grafton and to continue to support our tax base with increased business activity.
Thank you. Question number 3, I'm going to ask Matthew to provide the first response. I'll read it and reread it if necessary. If there were one thing you could change about how the select board interacts, what would it be?
That is a great question. Let's see. One thing.
If there were one thing you could change about how the select board interacts, what would it be?
Let's see. Drawing a blank.
Okay.
Let's see. What would I say? I don't want to just pass. I guess I would. I'm going to pass.
It's absolutely
Continuing
fine.
to be awkward.
Yeah, no. Mark, you have the next opportunity. I'll repeat the question. If there were one
I can
thing.
answer.
Okay.
I'm not on select board, so I have limited visibility into how everybody interacts. But I might say laugh more, engage more, connect more. That's something that I'm huge on, is connecting with individuals, connecting with people. It's always seemed to be something that's been my sweet spot. Visiting with individuals from any part of the country, from any part of my company, from any part of my family, and just tuning in and to their frequency and listening and getting to know them and figuring things out and really having a great conversation. I love to see more of that. I'd love to see the select board get out more and visit with the community. I know that we do. I know that they do, not we, they. I know that they have. I went to an AMA a month and a half back. Love to see more of that. Love to see people laughing and smiling and interacting and engaging with people in the town. That's what I think would be great about improving or changing things on the select board relative to interacting with people.
Okay. Thank you.
So to
Colleen.
dovetail off of what he said, rather than changing though, I would just say continue doing what we have been doing, which is hosting AMAs. We've done 2 of those. We have a third one that'll be probably coming up in the next few weeks. You've also noticed in 2023 we've been hosting a lot more community outreach, topic-specific meetings. We did one for the railroad. We did one for the regional dispatch center. We did one for it escapes me right now, but we've been wanting to do more and target more and getting George Hill Road was the other one, and getting more people in a room that have the same interests, that we can all have the same information rather than piecemealing it. Oh, I heard in this meeting or in that meeting and everybody trying to put it together. Having outreach meetings is another great tool that the select board has been doing that I'd like to see us continue to do.
May I have a rebuttal?
Of course. It's 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Great. I'll make it quicker than that. I think we could improve our onboarding process. I know as a freshman member for myself, it was very difficult. It's very technical. There's a lot of political and personal and sort of operational dynamics that are very difficult to manage as a new board member. And that's something that I think we could do better at, is bringing new people in to make the board more effective earlier on in people's tenure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We'll move on to question 4. Colleen, if you could provide the first response, I'd be grateful. Question is, does Grafton have a structural deficit?
I thought that question might come up, so the one note I brought tonight was the definition of structural deficit. And that is the amount by which a government spending is more than it receives in taxes in a particular period. So by that definition, yes, Grafton has a structural deficit. And it is something that we're chronically looking at to try to fix and repair, but there's a lot of things out of the town's control, like the cost of healthcare, that you have to pay for these things and you have to provide all of these services. And it's difficult to say what are we not going to fund. You know, and a lot of people like to say it's a spending problem, when reality is it's just we have a great community with a lot of great things that it costs money to provide all of those wonderful things. And by that definition, yes, we are running a structural deficit.
Matthew.
Thank you. This came up last time. Yes, we do have a structural deficit. It's an issue with a lot of towns like Grafton. Grafton is not unique in any regards to that particular budget phenomenon. And the art of budget management and making good financial decisions along the way, it often relies on small individual decisions that add up over time. And I think that's something that I'm very good at. An example of that might be previous boards had allocated $1.5 million towards road stabilization, which paves the roads. And they kept at that $1.5 million every single year. Now, in order to make your budget sustainable and predictable without large leaps, and needing operational overrides in the future for things like that, I advocated to increase that by 2.5% each year to be able to keep up with inflation. Now, those type of small decisions don't impact taxes in a big way. It's a couple dollars per household per year. But what it means is that in 15 or 20 years, we're now raising more taxes to be able to cover the amount of roads that exist in the town at that time. So it's about all these little decisions. That's what adds up to a sustainable budget. And that's what helps with these structural deficits.
Thank you. Mark.
So I'm from New Jersey, and we call it like we see it. It's spending money you don't have. And it happens. It happens a lot in government. And it's unfortunate, but it is, we as towns, cities, states, and the country are susceptible to the swings in tax revenue. So there's not much, it's hard to predict that. It's hard to plan around that. But a personal philosophy for me is I'm dollar in, dollar out. Actually, I think Lynn would tell you that I'm dollar in, 58 cents out. So I'm a fan of that. And that's just the way we are. And I know that that's not realistic. But it is hard because there are a lot of demands and a lot of people that want a lot of different things. And it comes down to prioritization and prioritizing things in the way that the people of the town are hoping for. And of course, as leaders, we have to make decisions too. I'll tell you, the one thing that helps the most is spending money you don't have is finding more money. And a great way to find more money is to get more businesses in this town. Get more businesses, get more tax revenue, and find that money and help close that gap. Because it is one of my key priorities, not just personally, but it is listed, and it was one of the first things that we talked about, is fiscal discipline. I'm just that way. I'm not sure there's a ton that I can do about that relative to working with the finance committee and others, but I would say that my influence goes to a dollar in and dollar out. That's my philosophy, and we have to think that way.
Thank you. Next question, question number 5. Mark, you'll be the first respondent. Affordable housing can be a hot topic. What would you prioritize in discussions with developers? Affordable housing can be a hot topic.
So it's this question kind of makes it sort of a binary answer. It's not a binary topic. It's highly nuanced. It is hot, and it is difficult. There's probably a lot of people that don't even know that there's state requirements. I didn't in the beginning. I do now. We need to understand more about where we stand with safe harbor. We need to understand the nuances much better, or at least we need to communicate that much better. So a stakeholder would be a developer, and they are an important stakeholder because they're paying money for land. A stakeholder is someone that sells the land, and we are not in a position legally or maybe even morally to say you can't do what you want with that land. However, a stakeholder is also a current resident of this town. And out of the near 400 people I've spoken with, they're not clamoring for more of these developments. Everybody knows that. but they're also wondering why are they not being a little bit more included. Now, that's not a knock on anybody here. It is a function of the conversation. It's a hard conversation, and it's hard to get people engaged. It is hard to get people to the AMAs. It is hard to get people to these events and drive more community engagement. But it's one of those things where, you know, you give a lot to the developer, and I'm a fan of that. I'm a former contractor. I work with my hands and I need to do it to make a living. But a key stakeholder that needs to be engaged equally would be the residents of this town. And that would be something I would make a high priority in my position.
Thank you. Colleen, you're
Could you
next.
repeat the
Of
question?
course. Affordable housing can be a hot topic. What would you prioritize in discussions with developers?
Okay, so the select board currently has had these discussions with developers about affordable housing during our LIP process. And some of the things that we've prioritized is 25% affordability. It's something that we want to see in all of the projects. It's almost a non-starter at this point. We also have introduced the idea of reduced AMAs, where it brings the rent down lower. Typically that's at 80%, and we've negotiated down to 50 and 60%. Those are some of the negotiations that we've brought in to the developers who are looking to build affordable housing in Grafton, and that helps provide more housing for the people who want to work here, and that actually will help drive in some of that development that people want to see come here, because then companies will see that there's places for their employees to live in the town that they are also working in, which is very desirable.
Matthew.
Sure. It's a good question. I guess to answer it directly, what I prioritized in negotiations with Eastland, one of the partners that we negotiated with, based on our production plan in town and based on commentary from the Affordable Housing Trust, which I'm on, I prioritized affordability of the units. So that is the primary purpose of affordable housing, is to provide affordable places for people to live. The best way that we can do that is to work with the developers to try to lower those thresholds so that people with less income can afford to live in Grafton. It's really important for us to have places where teachers and firefighters and DPW workers, they can live in Grafton where they work. So that's what I would prioritize above anything. You can negotiate for cash payments, and you know that money will be spent and then gone. I think providing affordable units in perpetuity is the greatest thing that we can bring into Grafton while talking to developers.
Thank you. Question number 6, beginning with Matthew. What does success look like to you 2 years from now? What about in 3 years at the end of the term? What does success look like to you 2 years from now and in 3 years at the end of your term?
I'd like to, I'm going to just combine those two because that's what I'm going to do. One of the main things that I would like to continue working on is affordable housing. Being on the Affordable Housing Trust is something that I'm really passionate about. We have just awarded an RFP to a developer for 25 Worcester Street. That will provide senior affordable housing. I think it's a really important need for Grafton. I'd like to see that through. So if we could break ground within that 3-year period, I'd be very happy about that. The second thing that I'd like to focus on in this next term is public safety. So we've made huge investments in public safety in terms of staff, equipment, buildings, capital needs, all that kind of stuff. I would continue that. We're at a transition point, though, where Grafton has grown to the point where we need to address our public safety dispatch. So that's something that the select board's looking at pretty closely. Whatever direction we end up going in, I would like to see us making that continued investment and improving our capacity to be able to dispatch our important emergency services, fire, police, and EMS. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
A big, delicious budget surplus. A lot of really happy people smiling and talking and engaging. More cops, agree. More emphasis on our public safety. And probably, again, a better conversation on affordable housing, because people call it affordable housing. But the affordable units are a very small fraction of these big brick boxes. So when you talk to people, they talk about, why are you putting 3 and 4 and 5 big 3, 4, 5? So I'm exaggerating a little bit. These big boxes where there's like pink balloons and skateboards and puppies and baby carriages. Why are you doing that? And having a better conversation with the developers and a better negotiation around that. Because if you listen to the residents, these are the things that they say to me. They're not my words. I'm just a vessel. These are the things that they say to me about that. And I think that conversation would go a long way in sort of loosening things up, because, I'm starting to see more for sale signs. And people are saying, I'm out. I'd like to see in 3 years, not that. More people engaged in the same sense of community that I see all the time, only more broadly based across the entire town.
Colleen.
Success in 2 years for me would look like something a little bit different. The number one job for the select board is policy. I mentioned that earlier. And when I first got on the select board, there was no central location for all the board's policies. They were either conveniently forgotten or mentioned when a narrative was trying to be accomplished. And that really frustrated me as a resident. And when I got on the board, the first thing I did was request a copy of all of the policies. And it took some time, but once I received, hundreds and hundreds of pages, I was able to go through all of them. I created an Excel doc, which I brought back to the board. And for the last 2 years now, we have been going through all of the select board policies, formatting them, updating them, and revising them as needed. And most importantly, putting them online for all to access. And we have not finished that work yet. So in 2 years from now, I would like to say that we've finished it and that we've started to revise the ones that we've just recently done. It's going to be an ongoing process. And we really got this idea from the school committee, something that they're very excellent at doing. And I really wanted to see the select board doing that as well. Success in 3 years would look like this being held at the auditorium in the high school, because there are so many people interested in being here that all of these chairs are full, because we have so many candidates interested in running for this, because participating really is important, and I'd like to see more of that.
I'd like a rebuttal.
Of course. Yes, Matthew.
I just want to talk about affordable housing a little bit more. There's one way for Grafton to change the course of development. One way. Our way to change the course of development and put Grafton in the driver's seat in terms of working with developers and the type of developments we want is to get permanently into safe harbor. I'm not talking about a year, 2 years. The reason that I'm encouraging some build of apartment buildings and more density is because Massachusetts has prioritized that. They have mandated that every town along the commuter rail have a certain amount of density. We have the opportunity to build enough to get over the 10% threshold of SHI. That's a really complicated thing, but basically that puts us in a situation where when a new 40B development goes to the ZBA, they can just say no to it. And they can tell that developer exactly what kind of development they want. That's the position that we want to be in. Saying no to developers, saying no to development right now is going to put us in a position where we fall out of safe harbor, and we're going to see continued patterns of development with 40Bs as we have in the past 2 decades. So we have one way to get there.
Thank you.
And that's to work with developers.
Would anyone else like a rebuttal?
I would agree with that in a sense, except the only piece that we need to consider, and I know that we do, I know that you do, is an absence of compromising public safety. That is a concern. You hear mothers say, my 8-year-old daughter almost got hit by a car waiting for the bus. We can't compromise public safety, and we can't compromise our infrastructure. And it is an old town with old infrastructure, and these are thin roads with telephone poles right on the edge of the roads. That's a challenge. Totally agree. If we could get there and be there permanently, phenomenal. I just think that we need to be as thoughtful and responsible and careful as possible. And I know that we try to be. I do know that. It's just that I'm not sure all the residents really feel that completely. And it doesn't always feel that way. Maybe community engagement can improve that. Who knows? I just know that safety and infrastructure are key issues to always keep an eye on.
That's it. Colleen?
So just to speak to the safety part of that, we learned recently in a ZBA meeting that public safety is not a reason to deny a development. It would really have to be like a building trying to get built at the end of an airport runway. That's the level of public safety. So we could really, you don't want to tell everybody you're going to stop development because of public safety, or you're going to take this into huge consideration because legally you can't, and you don't want to get the town in trouble. And infrastructure is really important too, and I'm glad you bring that up because I recently toured the wastewater treatment plant because of that. I really wanted to better understand our infrastructure. It took 2 hours. That building is incredible, and I highly recommend taking a tour if you're ever interested because it's phenomenal.
Any further rebuttals to this question?
Yeah, I don't want to squash negotiations with developers. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I care about public safety a great deal. And I know everybody else does too. And it just needs to be repeated and repeated and repeated all the time, and especially to developers. Absolutely. Because if they're a partner, then they're going to be a partner, right? They're going to care about that.
Can I just take 20 seconds? There have been and will be no compromises in terms of public safety or infrastructure. We've checked with our police chief, our fire chief. We've checked with DPW on our sewer and water. There are no concerns there. We've asked the developers to fund a study on our sewer capacity because that was a concern that was raised by ZBA. We'll continue doing our due diligence, but there has been no compromises and there won't be. Thank you.
Colleen?
Agree with Matt.
Okay. All right. I've been advised we have time for one more question. I'm going to ask Colleen to be the first respondent, and then you'll each have an opportunity to provide closing remarks. Next question is, what is the status of the super park? What is the status of the super park?
I love that I get to answer this first. So the Super Park was a playground initiative that started many, many years ago. And the town had initially funded about close to $500,000 that was going to go towards the park. They showed these beautiful images of what this park was going to be. The town said, yes, build me that $500,000 playground. Then the library got approved, the playground got put on hold, and the next thing you know, the playground came back at a bloated $2.1 million structure, and the town was like, hold on a second. And I actually brought a citizen's petition forward asking to refund the remaining, it was about $270,000 now, money of that initial $500,000, bring that back into the capital, municipal capital stabilization account, because this is no longer the playground that was voted on originally. This is now a out of scope, out of whack playground. And it was overwhelmingly agreed at town meeting that, yeah, please return that money back. So the super park, as that has been likes to be, that's not going to be built in the way that people remember it. Now we have a great playground up on Norcross that's being presented at this town meeting that we're going to have the opportunity to vote on and see come to fruition, and that looks like a great accessible playground, and it's being with the use of capital money, insurance money, because unfortunately a tree fell on it, and a little bit of CPC money. And I think that, if you come to town meeting next week, you'll be able to vote on that wonderful playground, and hopefully we'll have a new structure.
Matthew?
Sure. Mostly what Colleen said, I suppose. We are building an accessible park on North Street. So there'll be $860,000 investment there. That's going to be a wonderful facility that'll be fully accessible. With passive recreation, I think that's a phenomenal thing. We're making improvements in Norcross Park, as was mentioned. We're refurbishing the pickleball down on the Ferry Street Park in South Grafton. So Grafton will continue to make investment in passive recreation and recreation facilities all over Grafton. It's one of the things that Grafton's always been strong on, and we'll continue to do that. As far as the super park goes, I don't think that that's going to be built as proposed at town meeting a couple of years ago. We're instead investing that same money into multiple parks to provide recreational facilities, to more parts of town, basically, is what's happening.
Thank you. Mark?
I think it's dead. I mean, it came and it was voted down. It's unfortunate. It was a good idea. There was an opportunity to make good on a promise. When the high school was built, there was a park there, and there's some good intentions around building a new super park for a place for people to go. And as we, currently now, but it doesn't. It's off the table now. And I wasn't here when all that happened. So, but I would say that the opportunity to invest in those kinds of environments as we grow and bring in more people and expand our base, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, because when we talk about things like mental wellness or mental health, to me personally, I've learned this a little bit the hard way through some people in my life who did a lot of medication, mom and dad a little bit, and they didn't get outside as much. I'm a big fan of being outside. I'm a big fan of being active. I'm a big fan of being in sunlight and going to places where I can exercise and do a lot of different things. A lot of times we'll just walk at the football field at the high school. We walk at the park on Brigham Hill Road. And the more areas that we can go to help to develop those into places for people to be, I think it's just better for everybody. I really do. It's going to come down to priorities and money, but I think those are great things to do. So I'd be for that. I know that one doesn't exist, but if there's a way to reintroduce it in a different form at a different time, I'd love to be a part of that.
Thank you. Each individual is going to have 1 minute for a closing statement. We're going to go in the reverse order of the opening statements. So the order will be Mark, and then Matthew, and then Colleen. So Mark, 1 minute for your closing statement.
I wasn't expecting to do this. However, being in the town since 1996, here 27 years, we love the town. We've made our home and our family and our life here. I've got an opportunity, some time in my life to give. I'm a big fan of public service, of serving. And after all of this journey and participating in discussions, the path led me to this point. And I believe in it. I really feel strongly about it. I know that, I haven't done all the things that Colleen and Matt have done relative to committees, but my 30 years of experience kind of gets you right there in a big, big way. And with all of that, I'm not looking for the next big thing. I'm not looking to build a political resume. I'm not even doing this for me. I'm doing this for you because I think you'd like me. I think I can do a really good job for you. And in fact, I'd work my heart out for you. I don't want anything more other than to serve this town right here and right now.
Matthew.
Thank you. My name's Matthew Often, and I hope that people would agree that I've done a good job on the select board. I've delivered on all the promises that I made in 2020. I've been, I think, very strong on collaboration and my ability to work with other board members in a team setting. And I hope that you come out on May 16th and vote for me. Thank you.
My name's Colleen Roy. I have enjoyed serving the town of Grafton on the select board for the last 3 years, and I would be honored to continue serving for 3 more years, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 16th.
What's that? Okay. Thank you, Mark, Colleen, and Matthew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Before we close out, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank all the candidates and all the audience members for your participation. This program will be shown on local access cable from now until the election. Please be reminded that town elections are Tuesday, May 16th. If you prefer a mail-in ballot, you can contact the town clerk's office. Please vote, and thank you.